Now back to Outdoors with Larry Ray on ESPN 790. Brought to you proudly by the Tennessee Wildlife Resource Agency, Gaston's White River Resort, and Barton Power Sports.
Welcome back to Outdoors with Larry Ray. And we have now developed a new theme song for the one and only, the man from Kentucky Lake, the guide, the man, the waterfowl guide, the fishing guide. What more can I say? Steve McCadams. How'd you like that, Steve?
Instead of smoke on the water, we've had wind on the water. That's pretty good.
All right.
There's a song called Wind on the Water. We need to get that.
We'll find that one, but you always was moaning about Marty Marbury having her own theme song, so we brought in Smoke on the Water. We'll try to find something about wind, but then next week there won't be any wind. You know, that's the way, you win some and lose some, right? So
That's it. Well, we thought we got surprised this week. We thought spring spawning was going to start this week. And
yeah.
That's what I put out in my report last week. But It's been a little sluggish to get going. We've had a cold front around Tuesday that backed things up. We had to get the overcoats and the coveralls back out. It's the same old song, but seems like March weather has lingered over into early April for us this week. And our surface temperature is around 62 to 63. They dropped back down to 59 or 60 at night. So we hadn't had that quick surge this week that we thought we were going to get. So that's setting the stage for next week. So it looks like our spawning is right on the threshold, and I think we'll see some activity start by early next week because we're just now getting to that 63, 64 range where it'll stay there, I hope.
Well, that's what Ron Wong had mentioned about Pickwick, didn't you, Ron? I mean, you said about the same thing.
Yeah. Yes. It's, I would assume that the fish are starting to move towards their spawning areas there on Kentucky Lake. And when we talk about spawning areas there on Kentucky Lake, Steve, is that like in the creeks where the stake beds may be or things like that?
Yeah, we usually catch some fish out on the lake, too, out on the flats, out on the main lake, actually. They'll move up deep drop-offs and start stair-stepping their way up. And sometimes when you get a real warm spell, instead of going from deep and slowly working their way up, they'll make a blitz toward those shallow venues in 4 to 6 to 8 foot water. And that happened a little bit last week. But when you get a cold front that pulls that surface temperature back down real quick, it seems like they just kind of retreat, pull back, and that's what they did this week.
Well, Steve, it is this time of the year when you really don't know what's going to happen. I mean,
that's right.
These long range forecasts. I'm really looking forward to the forecast for the next day. I'm not sure what's going to do in 10 days, and they'll put out those things.
And we've had so much wind here, and wind on Kentucky Lake is a culprit for us always because it dictates where you can go and how you can fish. And, and that's what we've had. We've had 15 to 20 mile an hour winds several days like this. And big rolling white caps. And we've caught some fish. Now, there's some good fish being taken, but numbers are down to our average, and that's to be expected when you got all this crazy conditions. So we hope stability is in the cards maybe for next week.
Steve, typically, how deep do the crappie spawn there on Kentucky Lake?
A lot of it has to do with the water
range, but there's typically what's the spawning?
Yeah, typically in 4 to 8 foot, something like that. They'll come right around the shoreline in 2 to 3 feet if it's muddy, dingy water in some places. But generally speaking, 4 to 8 foot, something like that. That clearer water lets that light penetrate, so they don't necessarily have to get right up on the shoreline to spawn. They can do it out there a little bit deeper, and that's our watercolor's in good shape now. So that's 4 to 8 foot range is always kind of the productive area.
Well, I also hear that the bass are biting pretty well. Especially south of Paris there around the New Johnsonville area on humps out on the river, 2 to 4 feet deep, dropping off into deeper water. But I understand they're really catching some pretty good fish there, too, now.
There have been some pretty decent stringers caught. Not as heavy as last year at this time. We're not getting those 25-pound plus stringers here like we did the last 2 or 3 years, but still some good fish being taken. And the crankbaits are still popular right now on gravel, but there's a lot of guys throwing Alabama rigs. I'm still seeing several boats work ledges in the main lake on flats. Some guys are beating the banks at the same time, so both patterns seem to be producing. And Kentucky Lake's funny. You can find an angler fishing a deep ledge, catching fish on a swim bait, another guy throwing a crankbait up on the bank, both catching fish. So you can have 2 or 3 things going here at the same time.
And we're talking to Steve McCadams, longtime guide on Kentucky Lake. You can go to his website. That's Steve McCadams, and that's MCCADAMS, SteveMcAdams.com. We have it posted on LROutdoors.com. And Steve, how long you been doing this?
Oh, it's my 40th year.
I thought it was
I don't know where it's going, but
your anniversary, 40th year, and I know you had a special birthday not this past year.
I've crossed the 62-degree mark. I'm trying to catch up with a lot of my old radio buddies.
Well, the only way you're going to do that is not bad. It's not good for me. Okay, let's don't. If you catch up for me,
you just stay where you are, and I'll catch you.
Yeah, if I could just stay where I'm at, that's okay. Some days I feel as young as you are and everything. But
well, I'm glad you do. You do a good job.
Well, a lot of guys think about, boy, I'd like to be a guide. You know, me and Ron have talked about this, and you know, people say, well, I want to be a professional bass fisherman or something like that. The guide. Tell our listeners out there, I mean, if there's somebody out there would like to do what you do, tell them what the challenges that go into it and also the life of a guide.
Well, it's rewarding because you meet a lot of nice people, but Mother Nature just beats you to death. And,
yes.
The weather, and you have no control over that. And seems like when you want to get wind in duck season, you can't get it. When you don't want it fishing season, you do get it some days, and the cold and the rain. And as I've gotten a little bit older, as I tell everyone, every year the rain's a little wetter, the sun's a little hotter, and the wind's a little stronger. But the good outnumbers the bad, but it is very, very challenging, and there's more to it than meets the eye. It's not all bread and butter and cake and ice cream every day. The fish don't do what you want them to do every day, nor do the ducks. So you've got to be willing to take the humps and the bumps, and there are a lot of bumps in the road as a guide, I can tell you.
And you know, you got to deal with the people, and you want them all to have a great time, but there are no guarantees.
You've just got to have a tough skin, because every day is not going to be a walk in the park, and you get some people that are not as understanding as others. You get some better than others. You enjoy them all, but some people are more demanding than others. And the good outnumbers the bad. Once in a while, you get a guy, if you've been here 40 years, he's been here 40 minutes. He knows more than you do. But once in a while, you just roll with it and roll with the punches.
And you've got you are a cancer survivor, and I couldn't go without this without mentioning. I'm assuming you're going to have your junior fishing rodeo on June the 11th, like we are here, right?
Absolutely. We're looking forward to that. I'm already working on it, so it'll be. I always enjoy those kids every year and doing that, helping raise some money for ACS, and we introduce a lot of kids to fishing for the first time, as you well know, and you hope they'll keep fishing.
Yeah, and I know Ron loves these kind of events too, and the TWRA does a great job of putting these things on. And this will be. Are you going to be in McKenzie? Where are you going to have that this year?
Yes, we're back at the McKenzie City Park.
That's good.
Still dry, so we're still at McKenzie City Park. We've got a nice little pond there.
Yeah,
good place to have it, actually.
Yeah, Carroll Lake is still dry, right? I mean, it's
that's my old homestake, and I hate to see that. I'm hoping they get it going one of these days, but right now it's a big mud puddle.
I know you hate to drive to see that.
Where they haven't fixed that gate that blew open. Or actually tore down at the spillway there. Well, that's unfortunate.
Well, they're waiting for graduates of Bethel University to donate money to that.
I guess I'm going to have to.
Yeah.
I guess that's what I'm going to
do. To do that. And again, we're talking to Steve McCadams. Steve, I know that this being April and May, and I've asked you this before, and other people asked me to fall, spring, crappie. What's and I know you're going to tell it like it is. I mean, do you like fall or do you like spring?
Well, I like fall for the stability of the season. It's more predictable, and you don't have fluctuating lake levels or cold fronts coming in. And June is good for me. Late May and June is very good up here. It's overlooked and underrated because of stability as well. So once those fish get through spawning, they settle down and they park and stay out there in that mid-range depth. And we do extremely well in late May and throughout the month of June here, as well as fall. So those are the seasons that I tell everybody about because of stability. And this time of year, this has been an unusual spring, but you've had too much of a roller coaster of weather here this year, and you just don't have that at those other times of the year. And crappie don't just drop and disappear and come back in April. They're still in the lake all year long if you're willing to do different things and take a different approach. And so there's a lot of big windows of opportunity, and those other seasons are certainly worthy of consideration.
What's people talk about slabs all the time, and I talked to Ron about this a lot. What's a slab crappie weigh, according to Steve McCadams?
That can vary. Beauty's in the eyes of the beholder a lot of times, but
That's
about a pound and a half fish on up.
A what? What'd you say
about
again?
a pound and a half on up. Is usually considered a slab crappie. I get a lot of anglers that think they've taken a 2-pound crappie, and a lot of times it's not a 2-pound crappie. It's easy to overestimate one if you had caught a lot of big fish. But about a pound and a half on up is considered a slab crappie.
Well, it depends on the camera angle, so
that has a lot to do.
That has a lot to do with
it. It's like 5-pound bass. A lot of times it's easy to overestimate them if you haven't caught them. And I tell an angler, I said, if you want that crappie to weigh 2 pounds, don't put him on the scales. If you estimate him, he can be anything you want him to be. But if you put him on those scales, he'll humble you.
Well, we really appreciate you taking time, Steve. I know this is your busy time. Again, folks, that website is Steve McCadams, and that's STEVEMCCADAMS, because I've had a lot of people say, well, you'll say that website. Now, how do you get that McCadams spelled? Well, he spells it the West Tennessee way. It's McCadams, okay? And give Steve a call. You have a great time. He's safety conscious. He knows that lake like the back of his hand. I've seen the back of his hand. So, and I've been out there. And sometimes we might just have to talk about Larry Ray and Steve McCadams stories. Sometimes.
That's it.
But particularly the first time I fished with Steve. I'm not even going to tell it. It was fun. I learned a lot. Do you remember what I'm talking about, Steve?
I don't remember. I remember you coming up, but I can't remember the first time. But I won't freeze you to death like you have me on the White River if you'll come up.
Oh, no. You enjoyed your time at the White River. You got to, you got to wear right.
I guess now I got over hypothermia.
Steve, thank you, buddy. We'll talk to you next time.
Hey, buddy.
All right, see you later. Steve McCadams. All right, let's take a break. Ron Wong is with me, coming back, and we're going to switch, and we're going to talk a little trout fishing on the White, the North Fork of the White, the Spring, the Little Red River, the White River with the one and only John Berry out of Cotter, Arkansas, on Outdoors with Larry Ray on ESPN 790.
You can find